Hi, friends, and welcome to another live episode of Hashtag SU. My name is Cecil Henove. This is another Monday evening, and tonight promises to be another wonderful evening for all our televiewers, especially those who have been following Hashtag SU since day one. So tonight, friends, we have two segments for tonight's episode, and our special guest for this first segment is right here with me in the person of Mr. Kurt J. Hoyer. This is not exactly his first time to be here, but I think he was in another show. He is the press attaché and the spokesperson of the U.S. Embassy. So, Kurt, Mr. Hoyer, welcome back.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back.
Yes, and I think this has actually been a very busy day for you. You just arrived from Manila.
I just flew into Manila, from Manila, and just this morning, and I've been running all day ever since.
I know. So you have not yet called it a day, and we will keep you here.
Not quite yet.
We will keep you here and until tomorrow, right?
Yes,
okay.
I'll be here tomorrow as well.
I have always been tempted to ask you this since the first time I had interviewed you in another show. And this is, after all, you are the spokesperson and the press attaché of the U.S. Embassy. I am quite intrigued about your job. What challenges you the most as far as you are concerned, especially that you are speaking on behalf of the American people, and you are speaking on behalf of the most powerful country in the entire world. Challenges and anything that you may want to share.
Well, it is a challenging job, and I think you sort of hit the key there when you mentioned it. It's really important to remember that and remind myself that that's what I speak on behalf of. I don't. It's not me speaking. Yeah. It's the government behind me. And when I remember that, I do my job well. And when I start to forget that, and I start thinking, well, I would think this, or I would, no, it doesn't matter what I think. Okay. You know, this is what my government believes. This is my government's position. Okay.
So just like any important person in any government or state for that matter, you cannot separate your private self from your job as a spokesperson and as a press attaché.
I definitely do have to separate them, but it's also helpful because it helps me to remind the press that with whom I'm speaking that's what I have done as well. And if they start asking me, oh yes, I know what your position is, but what do you think? And they usually do this in private, you know, and no, I'm not going to start talking about that because number one, it's not important. And number two, it might get mixed in accidentally with the message. And it's my job to give the government's message. Exactly. It's not my job to craft my own message or to try to think of something creative myself. It's my job to give that message.
Yeah. So always at the back of your mind, it is you as a representative of the U.S. government.
Yes.
And even if I know you enjoy a private self, right?
Yes.
I think you are also a private person.
Yes,
you enjoy private moments with family, with friends, but I don't think there is something that you have to do or that you need to do which can separate you from your job, especially that it's a very, very important job.
No, it is true, and I always have to remember that whenever I'm talking to someone in public, it's never really just me talking. Even if it's friends I've met, you know, and we're just having a beer and we're sitting down and chatting, as soon as the topic turns to U.S.-Philippine relations or some aspect of U.S.-Philippine relations, I have to remember that I'm always sort of on duty, so I won't talk about those relationship issues except from an official point of view. And if someone asks me privately, I'll give them the same information because, I don't want that someone to accidentally make a mistake and mix up the thoughts, basically.
You've been in the Philippines for 2.5 years,
yes,
am I correct? And before that, you were assigned in Afghanistan?
Yes.
And what other country?
Before Afghanistan, I was in Tel Aviv, Israel.
Oh my goodness. So these are actually like war-torn countries, right?
And Afghanistan, definitely.
Afghanistan, yes. And these are, I think, after Afghanistan and after Israel and being assigned in the Philippines, perhaps, I wonder, this is peanuts for you already.
Well, no, I mean, each job has its own challenges. Each job is different. There are some things that are easier about this job, but then there are some things that were easier in Israel, too. So, I mean, it's really hard to lump everything into one basket and say this is this and this is that. The challenges are, I mean, there are some very important issues here. and I dealt with, for example, very important issues in Israel, the Palestinian and Israeli peace and all that sort of thing. But the White House was so involved in those issues that it was really, they would hand me a sheet of paper and here's what you say. And you don't stray from that. That's what they say, and if you do stray, the big boss is watching.
Yes.
Here it's a little bit different. I mean, the White House is not sort of in the day-to-day, managing of that. So we're actually informing Washington what we think should be said in some areas more so than I have in other jobs. So.
Did you find yourself really extremely busy during the APEC summit?
Oh,
the
yes.
recently concluded APEC summit.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, we were very busy. We actually started being busy for 2 months before APEC arrived because there were meetings beforehand. There was some press involved in that too.
And aside from Manila, there were meetings elsewhere.
Yes,
no? In
yes.
Cebu,
We had meetings in
yes.
Cebu. There were meetings down in Boracay. I didn't get to go to that one. So,
okay.
but no, we were busy trying to. Sort of set the stage in the press for what the accomplishments or the discussions, at least in APEC, might be.
Exactly. In your job now, as a press attaché and as a spokesperson, how often do you consult the ambassador in terms of policies and other pronouncements, official, that is?
In a general sense, I would say almost every day. Every time we do something, the ambassador's office will be involved in that before it goes out finally. So yes, almost every time we say something, there is consultations there. On some technical issues, maybe not, but anything that's policy related, definitely. So.
This is your second visit to Dumaguete, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You were here last April, yes?
Yes.
And that was exactly to launch the Silliman University Research and Environmental News Service.
Yes.
And we have, in fact, the proponent here, Ms. Celia Acedo. And we had a long day today because you were in a forum at the American Studies Resource Center, participated in by our students as well as faculty members of Silliman University.
Yes.
So this is your second visit to actually, not really to check, but to perhaps to evaluate and assess the strengths of the program.
Right.
So where are we now? Because after all, you had spoken to our president, President Malayang, earlier today.
Right. Well, first of all, I want to express my thanks for everybody who's made this trip so fruitful. We started this program, like you said, back in April, and the idea was to see if there is enough information, enough interest out there to be able to pull a group of students, journalism students together to establish some point in the country for a center that people can come to trust for information about the environment, whether it's information that's coming from Silliman University or from other universities or from other scientists, but just a sort of a central convergence point for all that information. And Silliman seemed to be the logical place to do that because of your connections with environmental studies and things like that. So we set that up. We provided some equipment. And I think where we're at now is trying to find, okay, this is up, this is running. We need to see, our goals are up here. We're starting off down here. We need to see where we go next. How do we keep feeding? Because obviously something like this runs off information. So at the embassy, I want to make sure that anything we do that involves the environment, we're sending information about that down here to the students down here, so that if they want to research it, if they want to write about it, they can. If they want to call us, they know how to call us and get in touch with us, so that if they have a question about something, or if they need our help to get in contact with some organization in the United States, that they can do that. So far, it's been primarily pen journalism, writing,
print media.
Print
Yes,
media.
yes.
So I'm asking questions. Is it time to think about video? Because that's a growing field. A 20-second or 10-second video on Twitter, 30 seconds on YouTube, that can be very impactful. And I think there are good stories out there. And I think the Philippines is full of some great environmental stories. It's got some bad ones too, like every place does. But every time I travel around or every time I talk to people, I'm just amazed that there's some other new idea that some young Filipino has come up with that is protective of or improving of the environment. And we know how important that is. I mean, it's the only environment we got. We have to live in it, and we need to make it better. And so I'm constantly amazed that there is a lot of churn and action happening out there. It's not really getting reported. So we wanted to see if we can make that happen.
Yes. You mentioned that being in Silliman University, which is in the Visayas, is like a convergence zone.
Right.
But do you see this particular project expanding to other islands like Mindanao or perhaps in some parts of Luzon?
Right.
But with Visayas and specifically Silliman University as the convergence zone.
I think anything is possible. I don't want to sort of try to predict the future because this is still so very new. I know Silliman has connections with other universities or other institutions around the country, and if they want to sort of expand their reach and bring those organizations into it as well, that would probably fit in. But yeah, I mean, it could go anywhere. You know, I mean, it could, yeah, anywhere.
The power of media can never be overemphasized
Right.
or in fact underemphasized. And you mentioned the print media perhaps expanding to what you called as a broadcast or
Right.
perhaps videos and even YouTube and social media for that
Right.
matter. Yes.
Right.
How impactful is social media today in terms of churning stories about the
Right.
environment, Mr. Hoyer?
Well, I think basically social media is everything now. I mean, if you look just at the statistics in the Philippines, the number one source of information and news for people in the Philippines is TV. Okay, the second source is now social media. Third is radio, and the distant fourth is print media. So, I mean, social media, even in a country with the difficulties of terrain and all connectivity, social media is still the second largest source of information for people in the Philippines.
In the Philippines, yes.
Yeah. So it's very impactful. It works differently than broadcast and mass media do. You've got a different thought process going on. But at the same time, it's also more accessible. You don't have to write a story that will convince an editor to run. You know, all you have to do is do the story and put it out there. And if you do that well enough and often enough, you create your own following.
Yes. What do you think of citizen journalism? Because this can also augur well for social media.
Right.
We're quite big today on citizen journalism and even what we call as selfie journalism. You know, I can just get my camera, like take a photo of myself, video myself doing a report, and presto, I can send it to any television station.
Well, I think it's a good trend overall. I'm a big fan of lowering the barriers to entry, especially for information. Obviously, it has its drawbacks as well because you don't have that filter system in place to make sure that what I'm seeing is actually accurate and the true story, or it won't be the true. I mean, it will never be the complete story because it's one point of view, but at least it's complete enough to be valuable. And that's something that you know, those of us who work in the journalism profession have to remember that, yes, I saw this, and yes, I've got this on film, but I didn't see what happened, 8 seconds before, and I didn't see what this guy does in his home when I'm not looking, so I don't have a context for it. And I think that's what citizen journalism lacks because of the speed of it happening. However, there's some good things that come with that as well.
Yeah, the speed and at the same time the reach as well, because it has a wider reach for that matter. But I'm sorry, I always have a bias for print medium or the print media because after all, I can always expand on the story even if it may not exactly be very visual, of course, because it's print, right? Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, and audio for that matter, but it can be visual for that matter. But I can expound, I can expand, I can even clarify things on print medium, and I don't need to just come up with just one story, but perhaps several stories. Yes, but
that's true.
I'm sure you will also agree with me, Mr. Hoyer, that this is actually the way to go. You know, that social media is here. You might as well embrace new technology and be attuned with the needs of the times. Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
I mean, I think there will always be a place for print media, whether it is on a piece of paper or whether it's print online. That's maybe an arguable point, because there always will be people who will see that 30-second flash of information and they'll say, okay, but what's the backstory? Or, I want to know more. Or where can I go with this? And for that, you need words. That's easier to do with words. That's why we have them. That's why we have language, because it's easier to do that with words than it is with pictures. So yes, there will always be be a place for word-based journalism. It's just a matter of adapting that to the new realities of what we live in.
Yes, and exactly, content is the primordial consideration. Content,
yes.
and then
Yes.
you can practically go to print, broadcast, social media, and practically anything for our taking. And by the way, we will also be on YouTube, so I hope you can catch this episode on YouTube.
I might be able to avoid seeing myself again.
Oh, I know you cannot, because you will be all over. I hope that's not a violation of embassy rules.
No, that's fine.
It is not.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm good.
Great, great. So perhaps, Mr. Hoyer, in the last few seconds that have remained for this particular episode, maybe you can tell our televiewers once again the projects, not into too many words, the flagship projects, or perhaps the projects of the U.S. Embassy, and how this can benefit practically the entire Filipino people.
Wow, the flagship projects are large, but let me do this. We have a special program that the president started 2 years ago called YSEALI, Young Southeast Asian Leadership Initiative. You can find out more about it on www.yseali.state.gov. I'll repeat that again, www.yseali.state.gov, YSEALI.state.gov. If you're between the ages of 18 and 35, you can join. It provides opportunities for study abroad in the United States, for exchange programs. The program is designed to reach out throughout Southeast Asia and unite young people who have shared interests. So there are people working there who deal with environment issues, entrepreneurship, education, and civic engagement. Those are the five main pillars. It's a great program. It's really taking off in the Philippines. We've had some incredible results with it. We have a great group of kids, young people that we're working with, who actually are pulling together for the second anniversary of YSEALI. They pulled together 20 different events all throughout the Philippines in 20 different cities, all the way from Sulu up to Ilocos Norte.
All in the Philippines?
Yes, and that was all done by the YSEALI members themselves. It wasn't us who were doing it.
Alumni of YSEALI.
Yeah, we helped out, but it was their idea, it was their initiative,
great.
and that's great. That's what we like to see. I mean, that's what leaders of the future are going to be doing. Taking initiative and making things work, especially in the areas of environment and the areas of entrepreneurship, both of which are just booming here in the Philippines.
So their training actually did not go to waste, right?
No, it did not.
YSEALI, yes.
No, it did not.
So thank you very much once again, Kurt.
Thank you for having me.
We hope to have you again, perhaps in another program, in another venue, wherever, but definitely here in Dumaguete.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for this episode. So with that, friends, we will come back and immediately after our commercial break. We will be right back.